Imagine the moment your alarm goes off. The room is still, the world is silent, and for a brief second, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads back under the blanket, into warmth and comfort, into the promise of just 5 more minutes. The other path asks something harder of you, to rise, to step into the quiet of the morning, and to face the day with intention. Most of us, if we're honest, choose the first path. We roll over, drift back into half-sleep, and wake up later than we should. And from that moment, the day doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everything and everyone else. Emails, messages, noise, obligations. Before we've even taken a breath of fresh air, the weight of the world has already claimed us. But what if the morning could be different? What if, instead of rushing, instead of stumbling into the day, you created space, a sanctuary, just for yourself? Imagine rising before the chaos begins, when the streets are empty, when the air still carries the coolness of night, when silence holds you like a gentle companion. There are no notifications to distract you, no voices demanding your attention. There is only you. In that moment, you are free. The Stoics knew this power. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. These were not words meant for others. They were his own reminders, his own anchor, his way of stepping into each day with gratitude instead of complaint. He understood something simple but often forgotten. The way you begin shapes everything that follows. Most of us start our mornings without thought. We drag ourselves up, stare at our phones, scroll through the noise of other people's lives, and let the world set our mood before we've even had the chance to set it ourselves. And then we wonder why we feel tired, why we feel behind, why the day feels heavy before it has even begun. The problem isn't the day, it's the start. Now picture this instead. You wake up an hour earlier than usual. It feels difficult at first, but slowly the silence begins to feel sacred. You sit down with a notebook and write out what matters today. You breathe deeply, letting your thoughts settle instead of scatter. You read something meaningful, words that give your mind clarity and perspective. Maybe you simply sit by the window and watch the sun climb over the horizon, reminding yourself that this is another chance, another day you get to live. That 1 hour becomes more than time. It becomes your foundation. And here's the thing. The habits you build in those quiet hours ripple outward. A calm morning creates a steady day. A steady day creates a strong life. You don't have to do anything extraordinary. You don't need grand routines or complex systems. All you need is the discipline to claim that first hour as your own. To rise before the world rises. To think before the world thinks for you. To choose your mindset instead of letting it be chosen for you. The Stoics were not dreamers lost in philosophy. They were people who faced wars, loss, and chaos. And yet, they returned again and again to the same truth. Control what you can, let go of what you cannot, and begin each day as if it were a gift. When you rise with that spirit, mornings stop being a struggle. They become a reminder. They whisper to you, you are alive, you are capable, and this day is yours to shape. So the next time your alarm rings, remember this moment. Remember the crossroads. Remember that the choice you make in those first few seconds doesn't just decide how your morning feels. It decides how your life unfolds. You can slip back into sleep and let the world dictate your path, or you can rise and step into the silence, into the stillness, into the possibility of a new beginning. Because every morning is more than a start. It's a chance. And the question is never whether the day will come. It always does. The real question is, will you meet it half asleep, or will you rise and claim it as your own? When the alarm rings in the stillness of early morning, a choice immediately presents itself. Most people, half asleep and wrapped in warmth, surrender to the temptation of just 5 more minutes. It feels harmless, even deserved. But in that moment, the day begins to slip away, and control quietly passes to everything outside of you. The Stoics understood this weakness of human nature. Seneca once reminded us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The dread of waking up, the story we tell ourselves about exhaustion and struggle, is often far worse than the act itself. Rising early isn't unbearable. What traps us is the belief that it will be. Yet, when you stand up despite the comfort of your bed, you break through this illusion. You prove to yourself that discipline is a form of freedom. It stings at first, but growth never begins in comfort. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Those early hours offer the rare chance to turn inward. Before the demands of the world press in, before the noise of life fills your head, there is a silence that belongs only to you. In that silence, your deeper self stirs. Thoughts that were buried begin to rise. Problems that felt tangled suddenly loosen. You don't just wake up your body. You awaken your vision, your purpose, the part of you that is often drowned out by the rush of the day. And yet, how often do we ignore this gift? Instead of using those moments for clarity, many of us stumble straight toward the coffee machine. That first sip feels necessary, like life itself. But here is the truth we overlook. After hours of sleep, the body wakes up thirsty, not tired. The brain, mostly made of water, is dehydrated, starved of what it needs most. Coffee may give you a rush, but what your body is really asking for is a tall glass of water. Imagine beginning your morning not with a bitter jolt of caffeine, but with a cool drink that resets your system. It is simple, ordinary even, but the Stoics taught that it is through mastering the small daily actions that we build great lives. Epictetus said, "Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily." Drinking water first thing is one of those small acts of discipline. A message to yourself: I choose well-being over habit, clarity over impulse. Your brain thanks you for it. Hydrated, it sharpens. Focus improves, memory steadies, mood lifts. That one small choice becomes the first victory of the day. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Reaching automatically for coffee is an unconscious act, a sleepwalking habit. Choosing water instead is a conscious decision, a moment where you take back control of your life, no matter how small it seems. But even more dangerous than coffee is the quiet reach for the phone. Many mornings begin this way, your eyes barely open, and already your hand searches for the device glowing beside you. 1 second you are wrapped in silence, and the next you are pulled into a flood of emails, messages, headlines, and endless feeds. Your peace is gone before the day has truly begun. The Stoics would see this as handing over your inner fortress without a fight. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet the phone is a door through which countless outside events march into your mind, claiming it before you've had a chance to claim it yourself. Imagine resisting it. Just 30 minutes. No scrolling, no notifications, no outside noise. Instead, you rise, drink your water, breathe deeply, and let your mind settle. The silence holds you, and in it, you remember that this morning is yours. Not the world's, not your inboxes, not the news feeds, yours. That short delay is not just about avoiding distraction. It is about remembering your power to choose. Every morning is a crossroads. Comfort whispers from the bed, habits call from the kitchen, distractions glow from the phone. But in each of these moments, you are given the same choice: to drift unconsciously into routine or to rise with intention. The Stoics would tell you that life is nothing more than the sum of these small daily choices. To wake early is to win the first battle. To drink water is to choose clarity over craving. To guard your mind from the noise of the phone is to protect your inner peace. These are not grand gestures, but they are victories. And in time, they shape not just your mornings, but your entire life. Tomorrow, when the alarm breaks the silence, remember Seneca's words: "The suffering is in your imagination, not in the rising." Step into the discomfort. Drink deeply of water before coffee. Protect the first half hour of your mind as if it were sacred ground. Because it is. And when you begin the day this way, you discover something powerful. The day no longer owns you. You own it. The alarm goes off, and for a moment the world feels heavy. The temptation is strong. You want to roll over, grab the phone, and disappear into the endless scroll of messages, news, and updates. It feels harmless, just a quick glance, but deep down you know it sets the tone for the whole day. One small habit becomes the chain that binds you. In that fragile moment between sleep and wakefulness, you remember Jung's words echoing softly in your mind. We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. That thought lingers, and for once, you don't reach for the phone. You sit there in the quiet, realizing that this silence belongs entirely to you. The room is still, untouched by the noise of the world, and for the first time in a long while you notice how rare that feels. You breathe in slowly, letting the cool morning air fill your lungs. There is no rush yet, no demands, no interruptions. Just you. It's in this pause that you recognize the power of choice. You can start your day as a servant to distractions, or you can begin as the master of your own mind. Your eyes drift toward the bed. Sheets crumpled, pillows scattered, blankets twisted. It looks unimportant, a trivial task, but something inside tells you otherwise. With a simple decision, you straighten the sheets, fluff the pillows, and smooth out the covers. It takes less than a minute, but the effect is immediate. The mess has become order, and with it, a strange sense of control settles over you. You've already accomplished something, not because it was big, but because it was intentional. That small act becomes the first victory of the day. The Stoics would have understood this. They believed greatness is forged in discipline, not in dramatic gestures. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting your life worrying about what others think, because it pulls you away from what you can actually control. A messy room often reflects a distracted mind, one pulled in 1,000 directions. But now your space is calm, and so is your mind. What you've done might seem simple, just making a bed, but it is more than tidying. It's telling yourself, I am in control today. And in keeping that small promise, you've already begun to build trust with yourself, a trust that grows stronger with every repeated act of discipline. You move to the window and pull open the curtains. Sunlight spills across the room, golden and gentle, illuminating everything it touches. You stand there quietly, noticing the way the light falls, the way the air shifts, the way the morning feels when you're truly present in it. There is no noise, no endless scrolling, no anxious rush, just stillness. Perhaps you reach for a journal and write a few lines, or maybe you read a short passage from a book that sparks reflection, or you simply close your eyes, breathing slowly, grounding yourself in this rare clarity. In these moments, you aren't being pulled in 10 directions. You are choosing. You are awake not just in body, but in spirit. Admiral William McRaven once said, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. On the surface, it sounds almost too simple. But in truth, it carries a deeper meaning. Change doesn't come from sudden dramatic leaps. It comes from small, steady choices, repeated day after day. It comes from the quiet victories no one else notices, but that build into a foundation of discipline and clarity. Making your bed is not about the sheets. It's about momentum. It's about showing yourself that even the smallest acts matter. And if you can master those, you can face whatever storms come your way. The day has not yet demanded anything of you, but already you have claimed it. Already you've proven to yourself that the morning doesn't belong to your phone, to the news, or to other people's voices. It belongs to you. And as you step forward into the rest of the day, you carry with you that momentum, that self-respect, and that clarity. The morning is no longer something you dread or waste. It is the ground upon which you begin to build the life you choose. The day doesn't begin with the alarm clock. It begins with the first choice you make. Most people roll over, grab their phone, and sink into the endless scroll. But imagine starting differently. You wake up, the light is soft, the air a little cool, and instead of drifting back into distraction, you do something small, something simple. You straighten the sheets, pull the covers tight, fluff the pillows. In less than a minute, your hands have told your brain, today will have order, not chaos. It seems trivial, but it isn't. That small act carries weight. It is the first whisper to yourself, I'm in control. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. The clutter on your desk, the pile of clothes on the chair, the unmade bed. They aren't just mess. They're reflections of the noise inside you, the thoughts you haven't sorted, the emotions you haven't faced. Clean the outside, and the inside often follows. When you make your bed, you aren't just tidying fabric. You're aligning your mind, telling yourself you won't be ruled by disorder. But some mornings weigh heavier than others. There are days when your body feels like stone, when your head is fogged and your willpower is low. You aren't broken, and you aren't lazy. It just means your system hasn't caught up with the day yet. Your mind might be awake, but your body is still dragging behind. The fastest way to bridge that gap is to move. Not a grueling workout, not an hour of sweat, but gentle, deliberate motion. A stretch that loosens your shoulders, a walk that lets the air hit your face, a few squats that wake up your blood. Movement says to your nervous system, I'm here, I'm alive, let's begin. The Stoics knew strength wasn't vanity. It wasn't about showing off. Strength was energy for living. Epictetus reminded us that no great thing is created suddenly, and that includes your discipline, your focus, your vitality. Each small act builds the foundation. Morning movement isn't exercise, it's ritual. It's a quiet way of showing respect to yourself, of declaring that your body and your mind are ready to meet the day. Carl Jung also saw the body as the visibility of the soul. When your body is stiff, maybe your spirit is stiff too. When you feel stuck, maybe it's not just mental, it's physical. And so movement becomes medicine. Feeling anxious? Move. Feeling unmotivated? Move. Feeling sad? Move. It doesn't have to be perfect or elegant. It only has to start. Because once it starts, momentum takes over. Your blood quickens, your energy rises, your clarity sharpens, and suddenly you aren't dragging yourself through the day, you're steering it. Seneca warned us that it's not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it. How many mornings are wasted lying in bed, scrolling endlessly, waiting for motivation to fall out of the sky? Don't wait. Don't negotiate. Just move. Action before excuses, that is the path. And then comes the cold water. That moment before you step in, your skin tightens, your mind screams, every part of you says no. That hesitation is your comfort zone putting up its last defense. But if you step through it, if you let the icy water hit you, something shifts. You've broken the chain of hesitation. You've taught yourself that your will is stronger than your resistance. In that moment, there is no room for distraction, no noise, no laziness. There is only you, your breath, and your resolve. This is how mornings shape a life. Not with grand gestures or massive breakthroughs, but with small acts repeated daily. Making your bed, moving your body, stepping into the cold. Each is a quiet promise kept. And when you keep promises to yourself, trust grows, respect deepens, and discipline strengthens. The world might be chaotic, but you begin your day with order. And in that order lies the seed of greatness. When you first twist the handle and let the cold water hit your skin, it feels like betrayal. Every part of you wants to run. Your breath catches, your muscles tighten, your mind screams for comfort. But then something strange happens. If you stay there, if you breathe deeply and refuse to back away, the chaos inside you starts to settle. The water doesn't change, but you do. You realize the pain was more in your mind than in your body. What felt unbearable a moment ago becomes proof that you are stronger than your instincts, that you can walk into fear and not collapse under it. That is the real lesson the Stoics carried. Marcus Aurelius once said that the real thing to fear is not death, but never truly living. Cold water is not just water. It is a daily reminder that you can choose courage over comfort. Carl Jung said, "What you resist, persists," and that tiny hesitation before the shower is the same hesitation that creeps in before every hard thing in life. The moment you step forward, you weaken that hesitation. You tell your mind, I am in control, not my fear. Seneca used to train himself to endure hardship by fasting, wearing rough clothes, doing things that forced him out of ease. He wasn't chasing suffering, but strength. A cold shower is a modern reflection of that. You step into the water, you stay, you breathe through the shock. When you come out, you carry more than tingling skin. You carry the quiet confidence of someone who has already overcome. That kind of proof doesn't stay in the bathroom. It follows you into work, into challenges, into every choice where discipline is needed. And your body rewards you for it. Blood rushes faster. Your mind wakes up sharp. Your energy rises. The morning fog clears without a drop of coffee. You don't need stimulation. You need courage. Even 30 seconds at the end of your shower is enough. A short, brutal blast, a small victory, one declaration that you can do hard things. The Stoics believed virtue was proven through action, not words. That's what this is, a simple act of self-conquest, no speech, no theory, just proof. But the morning is not only about conquering discomfort. It is also about clearing the noise. We all wake up with thoughts scattered like papers in a storm. Worries from yesterday, plans for tomorrow, small irritations, forgotten dreams. They swirl endlessly, pulling your focus, dulling your mood, and leaving you trapped inside your head before the day even begins. That is why journaling is so powerful. Imagine your mind as a cluttered room. Every day new things are tossed in. Unfinished business, stray memories, expectations. If you never stop to clean, soon you can't even see the floor. Journaling is the act of picking things up, putting them in order, or sometimes just throwing them out. With pen and paper, you turn invisible weight into visible words. You release what was locked inside. It doesn't matter how you write. There are no rules, no grades, no audience. Maybe you pour out your worries. Maybe you write about gratitude. Maybe you capture the pieces of a dream before they fade. Whatever you write, once it's on the page, it loses its grip on your mind. The chaos shrinks. You feel lighter, clearer. Marcus Aurelius filled his own journals with reminders to himself. Simple, private thoughts that no one else was meant to see. They weren't for applause. They were his way of staying grounded, of examining his own mind each day. Journaling today is no different. It is not about being a writer. It is about being honest enough to look at yourself, to put order where there was only noise. So the morning becomes something else entirely. You step into cold water and remind yourself that you can endure. You sit with a pen and empty your mind onto the page, creating space for clarity. Discomfort gives you courage. Reflection gives you direction. Together, they shape not just the hours ahead, but the person you are becoming. When you wake up in the morning, your mind is like a blank canvas waiting to be painted on. It searches for something to focus on, some direction, some anchor. But most of us hand it over to the noise of the world too quickly. The first thing we see is the glow of a phone screen. Headlines designed to shock, strangers arguing on social media, endless scrolling. Without realizing it, you let your fragile morning state be consumed by chaos. Before you've even had breakfast, your attention is scattered, your emotions are stirred, and your energy is already drained. You think you're catching up with the world, but in truth, you've only fed your mind clutter that robs you of clarity. The Stoics would have shaken their heads at this. They knew mornings were sacred, a time to prepare the mind before stepping into the noise of life. That's why Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, began his days not with distractions, but with reflection. He wrote to himself, not for others, not for applause, but as a way to anchor his thoughts. Those writings, which we now call meditations, were never meant to be published. They were private notes reminding him to stay disciplined, humble, and clear-headed. Imagine an emperor, burdened with the weight of ruling the world, still taking time to sit quietly and put his thoughts to paper. He knew that without reflection, the mind would become a storm, and storms cloud judgment. Writing was his way of clearing the fog before facing the day. Modern psychology proves the wisdom behind this. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind is always speaking to us in subtle ways, through moods, symbols, and dreams. He warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Writing gives that unconscious voice a chance to be heard. When you pour your thoughts on a paper, you begin to notice patterns. Fears you've carried for years, frustrations that repeat, stories you've been living without realizing. Journaling becomes a quiet conversation with the part of you that doesn't perform for others, the part that tells the truth. And when the truth is seen, things begin to shift. Suddenly your worries look less overwhelming. Your choices appear clearer. You can see what really matters and what's just noise. Even on your hardest days, the page is a refuge. You can be angry, afraid, or lost, and the page still holds you without judgment. On your best days, it becomes a record of victories and insights, treasures you would have forgotten if you hadn't written them down. Seneca believed in this kind of reflection, saying we should call ourselves to account each night. Morning journaling is the same principle, but it looks forward. It doesn't just review the past, it prepares the mind for what's to come. But clarity alone isn't enough. You can know yourself and still lose your day to distractions if you don't give it direction. Many people wake up motivated, yet by midday they're drowning in tasks that don't matter. The hours vanish into emails, endless notifications, small demands that lead nowhere. At night, they collapse exhausted, but with nothing meaningful to show for it. This isn't laziness. It's the cost of not choosing a target. When you don't define your day, the world defines it for you. This is why goals matter. Not grand, abstract dreams that float far in the future, but simple, concrete actions you can take today. Not 20 tasks, not 10, just 3. 3 clear steps that move you forward. Because being busy is not the same as being productive. Unless you decide what success looks like, you'll spend your day reacting to whatever shouts the loudest. Epictetus warned, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." If you don't choose where you're going, someone else will take you somewhere else. Jung believed the same in his own way. He spoke of individuation, becoming whole, becoming directed. He said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Goals, then, are not just about achievement, they are about becoming. They shape who you are, one small choice at a time. And the truth is, small goals are better than big ones. Reply to the email you've been avoiding. Write 1 page. Take a 20-minute walk. One small act completed gives you momentum. One promise kept builds trust with yourself. 10 half-finished tasks build nothing but frustration. That is why mornings matter so much. They are fragile, and what you put into them decides the shape of your day. You can fill them with noise, or you can begin with clarity. You can let the world hijack your focus, or you can take a moment to anchor yourself, to journal, to set goals, to breathe. The Stoics believed virtue was not in theory but in action, and each morning offers that chance to act. Protect that time, and life stops feeling like something that happens to you. It begins to feel like something you are consciously creating, step by step, choice by choice. You wake up, and for a moment the world is still. The blanket is warm, the air is quiet, and you haven't yet chosen how this day will begin. It's here, in that fragile silence, that the first decision of your day is made. Will you let the world rush in and fill your mind with noise? Or will you decide for yourself what kind of day you want to live? Most people reach for the glowing screen beside their bed. They scroll through headlines, messages, and posts before they've even taken their first deep breath. Already, their thoughts belong to someone else. Someone's anger, someone's opinion, someone's advertisement. And just like that, before the sun has fully risen, the mind has been cluttered. But imagine another path. You sit up, feet on the floor, and instead of reaching for the phone, you sit in stillness. Maybe you take a deep breath, noticing the quiet rhythm of your chest rising and falling. Perhaps you pick up a book, a passage from Marcus Aurelius, or a line from Seneca, and let it settle in your mind like a seed waiting to grow. Instead of noise, you've chosen nourishment. Instead of distraction, you've chosen clarity. Carl Jung once warned us, "We are not what has happened to us. We are what we choose to become." And every morning, in these first small choices, that truth comes alive. You might journal a thought, reflect on a question, or simply notice the light spilling across the window. These little acts are not trivial, they are the foundation. Like placing the first stone before building a wall, you begin your day with intention. Even something as simple as making your bed becomes a declaration. You smooth the sheets, straighten the pillows, and in doing so, you tell your mind, "I am in control." It's not about perfection, not about impressing anyone else. It's about discipline. Admiral William McRaven once said that making your bed is the first victory of the day, a small but powerful reminder that structure begins with you. And from that one act, momentum builds. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. His mornings were not his own. He was needed everywhere, pulled in every direction. And yet, he carved out time to write his private notes, what we now call meditations. These were not speeches or public decrees. They were quiet reminders to himself, to stay humble, to remain just, to remember what truly matters. If even an emperor could begin his day by leading his own mind, what excuse do we have not to? Now picture 2 mornings side by side. In one, a man rolls over and unlocks his phone. Notifications flood in, opinions and chaos pull his attention in 10 directions at once. By the time he gets out of bed, his thoughts are already scattered. In the other, someone wakes and chooses stillness. They reflect, they breathe, they read something meaningful. Their day begins not with confusion, but with clarity. Which life do you think leads to strength? This isn't about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It's about small, steady acts of order. The Stoics understood that greatness is built in daily discipline, not sudden bursts of inspiration. Presence, reflection, focus, these are the tools. By choosing what to feed your mind first, you set the tone for everything that follows. Each morning is an invitation. You can let the world choose for you, or you can choose for yourself. One path begins in chaos. The other begins in calm. And the difference between the two might just shape the life you're building, one morning at a time. The room was still dark when he opened his eyes. For a moment, his thoughts began running ahead of him, the way they always did, racing toward problems, unfinished tasks, and conversations he didn't want to have. That heavy, restless feeling crept in, the sense that the day was already pulling him in too many directions. But instead of stumbling out of bed, he sat up and let the silence breathe around him. He remembered Marcus Aurelius' words, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If his thoughts would set the tone for his day, then he wanted to choose them carefully instead of letting the world choose for him. He closed his eyes again and began to imagine what might unfold. The meeting he dreaded, the tense faces, the hard questions, the moment he might normally lose his calm. But this time he pictured himself steady, his breath even, his words measured. He saw himself moving through the challenge without breaking. Then he imagined other small difficulties, interruptions, disappointments, delays. He rehearsed what it would feel like to hold his ground, not react with panic, but respond with clarity. It felt strange, but the longer he held the picture, the more familiar it became, as if his body already knew the rhythm of calm he wanted to carry. This was what the Stoics called preparing the mind for adversity, not to suffer in advance, but to build resilience before the test arrived. When he opened his eyes, the world looked the same, but something in him had shifted. Instead of rushing straight into the noise, he turned his attention to what was already present. The light sneaking through the curtains, the faint warmth of his coffee mug, the simple fact that he had another morning to live. A quiet wave of gratitude came over him. Not dramatic, just steady, like an anchor being lowered. Seneca had called gratitude the most honorable trait, and now he understood why. Gratitude wasn't decoration, it was armor. It grounded him against the chaos waiting outside. He reached for his notebook and began to write. Not polished words, not careful sentences, just the clutter in his head spilling out onto the page. Worries, half-formed ideas, fragments of dreams. Slowly the fog in his mind began to clear, as if the weight of all that unspoken noise had been lifted. He thought of Marcus Aurelius, who had written only for himself, never for an audience. Those words, scratched down in private, had guided him through leading an empire. Maybe these messy pages could guide him too, if only by freeing his mind to focus on what mattered. The day hadn't started yet, but already it felt different. He had rehearsed who he wanted to be, he had remembered what he already had, and he had cleared space in his head for clarity. The tasks and challenges ahead were still waiting, but he wasn't rushing into them blind. He was walking toward them with intention. And that, he realized, was the quiet strength of Stoicism, not the promise of an easier life, but the practice of meeting life as it is, with steadiness, with gratitude, and with a mind prepared to act. When the day begins, most people stumble straight into it half asleep, already reacting to whatever the world throws at them. The alarm rings, the phone lights up, notifications call, and without thinking, they hand over the tone of their day to chance. But there is another way, one that the Stoics and later great thinkers like Carl Jung knew well. Instead of reacting, you prepare. You set your mind like a compass before you take a single step. Picture a person waking up and choosing not to grab their phone. Instead, they reach for a single line of wisdom, maybe a quote from Epictetus, maybe a passage from Marcus Aurelius, maybe even a simple sentence that grounds them. They don't rush. They let the words sink in, turning them over slowly, asking, "What does this mean for me today? How does it shape the way I face that meeting I fear, that conversation I've been avoiding, that challenge I've been postponing?" It may seem small, but in that moment, they are putting on emotional armor. They are deciding ahead of time how they want to respond to setbacks, interruptions, or criticism. When the unexpected happens, and it always does, they don't spin in circles. They don't break apart. They return to center, guided by that single thought they carried with them from the quiet of morning. This is what Epictetus meant when he said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And Carl Jung echoed the same truth when he warned that if we don't consciously examine ourselves, our unconscious ends up steering our choices without us even realizing it. He said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Reflection, then, is not abstract philosophy. It's survival. It is the quiet act of taking ownership over your mind before the noise of the world can claim it. But even with reflection, there's a different kind of exhaustion that creeps into modern life. An exhaustion not caused by lack of sleep, but by disconnection. Day after day indoors, under fluorescent lights, staring at screens, living in constant pressure, we forget the world outside. The mind is overstimulated, the body underwhelmed, and slowly, without noticing, we feel unmoored, restless, anxious. The cure, strangely enough, is simple. Step outside. It sounds almost laughably basic, but a few minutes breathing real air, feeling the ground under your feet, letting the sun, or even the rain, touch your skin can change everything. It isn't about escaping a room. It's about returning to something ancient, something essential. Before schedules, cities, and screens, there was earth, water, wind, and birdsong. That was our original home. We are still wired for it. The Stoics knew this. They did not see themselves as separate from nature. To them, nature was not a backdrop, it was a teacher. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to adapt to the life he was given, to love the people destiny had placed around him, and to embrace the world itself. Nature taught them flow, change, and connection. Carl Jung saw the same truth through psychology. He believed much of modern suffering came not only from trauma, but from disconnection with nature. He said, "Natural life is the nourishing soil of the soul. Without it, we feel empty, restless, anxious. No wonder a short walk among trees, even 5 minutes of stillness outdoors, can do more for the spirit than hours of overthinking. You don't need to climb a mountain or retreat into the wilderness. Just step outside. Notice the cold or warmth of the air. Listen for the birds, the hum of wind, the stillness between sounds. Let the sky remind you that the world is bigger than your to-do list. Let the ground remind you that you are not floating in chaos. You are rooted. You belong here." Heraclitus once said, "Nature loves to hide, but it isn't hiding from you. It is waiting, always present, offering calm, perspective, and healing. The more time you give it, the less reactive you become, the less heavy life feels, and the more human you feel again." And yet, even with reflection and nature, there is another piece we forget: the body. People talk endlessly about mindset, discipline, productivity, but overlook that the mind is carried in a body. Your brain is not fueled by thoughts alone. It's a physical organ, and what you feed it determines how well it performs. Too often, mornings are rushed. Breakfast is skipped or replaced with something fast, sugary, empty. It gives a burst of energy, then the crash comes, the fog, the irritability, the unraveling of focus. The day collapses not because you are weak, but because your body was never given the fuel it needed to show up fully. The Stoics would see this as a form of neglect. Epictetus often reminded his students that caring for the self was not a luxury, but a duty. To care for the body is to care for the mind, and to care for the mind is to care for the soul. Reflection, stepping into nature, and nourishing yourself, these are not separate tasks. They are one practice, one act of preparation. They remind you that you are not here to stumble blindly into life, pulled by every current, consumed by every noise. You are here to meet life with clarity, strength, and presence. And when you begin the day this way, not just reacting, but preparing, you are no longer a passenger in your own life. You are the one holding the reins. The alarm rings, and for a few seconds there is only stillness, that fragile moment before the day begins. Then the mind starts racing, tugging you in 100 directions at once. Thoughts of yesterday's failures, today's unfinished tasks, tomorrow's uncertainties, they arrive uninvited, heavy and loud. Most mornings, people let those voices set the tone. They stumble out of bed half awake, already reacting, already pulled into the current of chaos. But it doesn't have to be that way. Imagine instead choosing to lead yourself before the world gets a chance to lead you. The first step is simple, though it rarely feels easy. You sit up, feet touching the floor, and you breathe deeply. You remind yourself that this morning belongs to you. that these first few minutes are your foundation. Just as a musician tunes their instrument before stepping onto a stage, you are tuning your mind before stepping into the day. You walk to the kitchen and prepare food that will actually sustain you. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just clean and steady fuel. As you eat, you notice the difference. Your body is being cared for, and with it, your mind begins to feel steadier too. The Stoics understood this link long before modern science proved it. They knew that what you feed yourself, body or mind, determines how you carry yourself through the world. Noise leads to confusion. Substance leads to strength. Once you finish eating, you open a book or a journal. 10 pages, not more. A few passages of philosophy, perhaps something from Marcus Aurelius or Seneca. Maybe a podcast that challenges your assumptions instead of numbing you. These words are like morning companions, mentors across centuries. They don't solve your problems for you, but they sharpen your sight, reminding you what matters. In those minutes, your thoughts stop being inherited from the world and start being chosen by you. Afterward, you close your eyes. You picture the day ahead, not as a blur of tasks, but as a story you get to write. You imagine the conversations that will test your patience, the work that will test your focus, the moments that will test your strength. You see yourself not as flawless, but as deliberate, calm where you used to react, clear where you used to stumble. It might seem abstract, even fanciful, but it isn't. The brain begins to carve paths based on what you imagine, preparing you to notice opportunities and filter distractions. It is not magic. It is practice. When you finally step outside, the world hasn't changed. The traffic is still noisy, people are still impatient, life is still unpredictable. But you are not the same as you were yesterday. You have already led yourself before anyone else could. You have fed your body with energy, your mind with clarity, and your spirit with intention. The critic inside may still whisper, but its voice is weaker now, drowned out by the discipline of your own choices. This is what Marcus Aurelius knew when he began his mornings with reflection instead of politics. This is what Seneca meant when he urged us to walk with those who improve us. And this is what Carl Jung reminded us when he said we are what we do, not what we say we'll do. Each morning is not a random accident. It is a rehearsal for the life you want to live. Some people spend their mornings stumbling. Others spend them building. And every day, you get to decide which one you will be.